Are you confused about which Milwaukee charger you need? Well, you're probably not alone. In front of us are the majority of Milwaukee current chargers. Yes, there's probably several other renditions of these chargers, but for the most part, we've got a good selection here of especially their M18 chargers and most of their M12 chargers as well. We're going to dig into the details of each one of these and talk about what's the difference between a typical charger, a rapid charger, a supercharger, a dual port supercharger, and even a 6-port charger. Well, let's get started. So maybe you should think about upgrading your Milwaukee battery charger, but which charger do you choose? Well, maybe we can help you with that. We don't have every single charger here, but we've got the majority of the M18 chargers that have been available for the last, I don't know, since M18 has been available. So there are a couple missing, but for the most part, we've got each generation here for sure. Well, let's start with the first, or at least the lowest output of them, and then we'll work up from there. And by the way, after I kind of get through this introduction, if you will, then we'll actually bring each one out and talk about them more in depth. This is the M12 M18 charger, so obviously you have the M12 port as well as the M18 port as well, and this is the model number 48-59-1812. Then we get to the rapid charger. So we just had the regular M12 M18 charger, and then we move to the rapid charger, and that is the model number 48-59-1808. And then we move on to the dual port rapid charger, which is the model number 48-59-1802. Now these first two obviously gave you the M12 functionality as well. Then moving to this one, this is just M18. And then we get to the supercharger back there in the back. So that was the first supercharger, has the M18 and the M12 port, and that is the model number 48-59-1811. And then we have the dual port supercharger, which is the 48-59-1815. And then we have the 6-port rapid charger, really 3 ports of M18, 3 ports of M12. And this is a little bit different of a bird that kind of sits off by itself, and we'll explain why in just a moment. And this is the 48-59-1807. Now let's take more of an in-depth look at each one of these, and we'll go over the numbers and even talk about the price of them and explain why they are quite different from one to another, and especially from first generation up to our dual port supercharger. So this is basically our first generation of the M18 M12 combo charger, and it's the model number 49-58-1812. Now, if you'll look at the label on there, not only will you get that model number, but it'll also tell you like input voltage and output voltage as well. Input is obviously 120 volts. You're plugging it in an outlet. Output voltage is 12 volts or 18 volts. We're going to look at 18 volts. Input amperage, it says, is 2.1 amps. Okay, well, it says that output amperage, which is really what we want to look at, is 3 amps at 18 volts. Well, let's break that down to where it's basically apples to apples. And so we take volts times amps is going to give us watts. So that's going to give us 252 watts. And that's going to give us 54 watts output. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that, again, we're going to look at this output, and that's our DC watts output. So 54 watts. Well, if we look at a battery on the, by the way, you can also multiply this, but it will typically tell you watt hours. So this one says 108 watt hours. How do we get to 108 watt hours? Very easy. Number one, typically it'll say a 6.0 or 5.0. That's your amp hour. So multiply that times your voltage, which is 18 volts. And by the way, if you ever have a 20 volt battery, you still multiply by 18 volts because that's nominal voltage. Milwaukee uses nominal voltage in their labeling. So again, 18 times 6 is going to give us that 108. So 108 watts. Well, if we divide 108 by 54, that's exactly 2. What does that mean? That means that this charger running for 2 hours is going to supply 108 watt hours. So in other words, it's putting out 54 watts. So that in an hour is going to be 54 watt hours. Times 2 is going to be 108 watts, or 108 watt hours. So that's what this battery is. So if this were at 0, this were all the way dead, this charger would take 2 hours to actually charge that battery. Now we can move faster with these additional chargers, but just kind of explaining the math to you as we go here. And obviously a 5 amp hour battery is going to take a little less time to charge, and a 12 amp hour battery is going to take roughly double that. And again, if we look at the bottom of a 12 amp hour pack, right there, 216 watt hours, or 2 times 108, again, 216. So that's going to take 4 hours to charge that 12 amp hour battery on this M12 M18 charger. Also, if you'll notice something, again, we have an M18 port and we have an M12 port. Well, it doesn't mean that we get double the charge capability, right? So I'm going to take this M18, put it on here, and you'll see it will turn red. So now the light is red, it's charging. We know it's charging because it's solid red. If it were blinking red, it would mean it's waiting. So if I take this M12 battery and put it in here, now you see this light is blinking, this light is steady. That means this port is charging, this port is waiting. Now that battery pack is out. Now this one will start charging because there's no longer one in this port. I put this one over here. Now this one will start blinking. And what will happen is once this is fully charged, then this one will start charging. So it's a sequential charger. It's going to charge one. When it's finished, then it's going to move on to the other. And it's always first in, first out. In other words, it's going to, whichever one you put in first, that's when it's going to start charging, and the other one's going to wait. Now, this is the first rendition of the rapid charger. We get the combination. We get the M18 and the M12, but it is the rapid charger, which gives us, let's first get the model number. The model number is the 48-59-1808. Input amperage is 2.75 amps. And again, that's at 120 volts. And output amperage is 6 amps at 18 volts. So we know this is 60 and 48, so 108 watts. And this would be 330 watts. So that's input, really doesn't matter. This is the stuff we're looking at. So 108 watts. If we wanted to charge this 108 watt hour battery, then we know that's going to take 1 hour to charge. Okay. And then this is going to take 2 hours to charge. So basically, we're doubling our output from the previous one. Now, at the same time, we're only sequentially charging here as well. So again, if I put my battery in here, we will see it will start charging. So it's a solid red. That means we're charging. And if I put my M12 battery in there, we'll see that this one will go to flashing. So it's waiting. So it's going to charge this one fully before it starts charging that one. Again, if I pulled this one out, now it's going to start charging this one. So this is still a sequential charger. It's just providing a lot more output to charge these batteries. So this is our dual port rapid charger. So now we're going to have a rapid charger that's dual port, and it's also simultaneous. So you'll see a big difference here. We're no longer just, doing one then the other. We're actually charging both ports at the same time. Now on this one, we're going to have 120 volts. Let's first get the model number. That is the 48-59-1802. So at 120 volts, we got 5.5 amps. And at 18 volts, we get 6 amp output, just like on the other 6 amp output. So that is 108 watts. And this is 660 watts. Now the difference here is, obviously we're going to take an hour to charge this 6 amp hour battery. It's going to take 2 hours to charge the 12 amp hour battery. But the difference here is that I can put one battery in and you'll see it goes to charging. So we get a solid red light. So we know with Milwaukee that means that it's charging. And if I take a second battery and put it in, you'll see that light go solid as well. So this is not going to just charge one and then the other, it's going to charge both batteries. Although this one may get done before this one, obviously, because this is a much larger capacity battery than this one. So if they're both all the way dead, then it's going to take longer to charge this one than this one. But we get that, right? Also, something different on here, we hear a fan running in here. So in the dual port rapid charger, we've got a fan running, keeping things cool, keeping these batteries cool while it's charging them. So a lot more battery management going on in the better battery chargers. A lot safer to charge those as well. Now we have our 6-port rapid charger. So still the rapid charger rate, if you will, but we'll explain a little different now. But now in a 6-port design. And in this one we have 3 18s or 3 M18s and 3 M12s. Now actually each one of these is set up as this is set 1, this is set 2, and this is set 3. I say that because this will actually charge 3 batteries at a time. Now it will do M12 and M18 batteries, meaning if you had 3 M18s in here, it would charge these 3 at the same time. If you had 2 M18s here and an M12 over here, it would charge all 3 of those at the same time. But understand, if you had 2 and set 1, it's only going to charge 1 of those at a time, and it's going to charge these others. So look at these as kind of dividers. So if you've got 2 M18s on these 2 sets, make sure you put your M12 here. Model number is the 48591807. And input voltage, obviously 120, 18 output, and 6 amps and 6 amps. Obviously that's going to be 720 watts. This is going to be the same 108 watt rate. The difference being now we're sending that and we're using that across 3 simultaneous chargers. Could be a little less than that if we were actually charging 2 M18s and an M12. So the cool thing about this 6-port is not only can you load up 6 batteries and just, be done, and by the next morning everything's charged, but it will also charge actually 3 sets of these. So set 1, set 2, set 3, or bank 1, bank 2, bank 3, and it's going to charge 3 of these banks at the same time. The difference being now you've got the ability to charge, 3 of these within an hour versus 1 at a time for an hour. Now we've got the Supercharger. So now we're getting into the latest rendition of Milwaukee's charger and some of the highest performance. Now the model number on this is the 48-59-1811. At 120 volts, 18 volts, we get 6 amps and 13.5 amps of output. The same 720 volts. I'm sorry, that's 720 watts and 243 watts. So that's given us the ability to now charge something like this 12 amp hour battery in less than an hour. Because again, if we charge this for 1 hour, we're getting 243 watt hours. This is only 216 watt hours. This is only 180 watt hours. So we're charging this in less than 30 minutes and charging this in less than an hour. Now understand something, when we're getting to the Supercharger and really in the rapid charger as well, that 0 to 80% of charge happens a lot faster, or really at that maximum rate. And once it gets to that 80%, it is going to slow down. There's some battery management going on. It's going to cool things down, make sure things are cool, because when you're charging it really fast, you start overheating things. And so it's going to be reading these batteries and saying, okay, we're going to slow down that charge rate when we're charging from that 80% to 100%. If you look at electric vehicles and Teslas and things like that, kind of same thing applies. That's why they typically recommend you just to, charge to 80, 85% and roll on. Same thing with these batteries. Once it gets up to that 80, 85%, it's going to really slow down that charge and not make it as fast. So we're using whole numbers here, but understand that's kind of a ramp effect or a diminishing effect when it gets to the upper end of the charge cycle. But the bottom line is you can throw this on here, and when it gets to 80%, grab those off, and that's going to happen really fast with the rapid charger, even more so in the Supercharger. And as you can see here with the Supercharger, I can throw an M18 in here. Fan comes on, it starts charging, and if I take an M12, stick it in there, So now this is a sequential charger. So it's waiting, so it's not charging, it's waiting until this one is finished before it moves on to this one. Now let's look at the new Mac Daddy, and this is the 48-59-1815. And this is at 120 volts, it's 4 amps, that's 480 watts. And that's interesting because that's less than the other supercharger we just looked at. It was at 6 amps input, and now output here at 18 volts is 18 amps, which gives us 324 watts output. Now here's one thing to understand here. This supercharger is not only their fastest charger, but it's also optimized to run with their brand new Forge batteries. So the BMS, or battery management system, and the communication between the charger and the battery is going to allow this charger to charge the Forge batteries quicker than your typical, even your high output HD batteries, your high output high demand, or your regular high demand batteries. So it's going to charge these Forge batteries quicker. So you're really not going to get that full 18 amps on a battery like this, or even your older batteries, just on your Forge batteries. So it's going to charge this battery, this Forge battery, really, really quickly. In fact, it will charge this battery in just 20 minutes. But yet on the 12 amp hour battery, it's going to take closer to an hour, like 53 minutes on it. Now something interesting here, you can see I've got 2 batteries in here, and it's charging both ports at the same time, but it's supercharging one port at a time. So it will supercharge this port, and then it will go over and then change over to here. So even though it's charging both, because you can see here, it's not flashing, it's actually solid red telling us it's charging this one faster than this one. And again, it's going to be on a first come, first served basis. If I would put that one on first, you see now it's switched over to that one being the faster charging. If I put this one on, it's going to charge, but this one's being charged faster. Really loud fans in here. In fact, there's a fan for each port, and you can see the ports here right near the batteries where it's actually cycling that air around these batteries to keep everything nice and cool in the charger and in the battery pack while it's charging it. So now let's go over pricing really quick, and this is probably not going to surprise you at all. So the oldest one of the bunch is $79. Okay, and then the first rapid charger, and that's going to be $99. Moving on to the dual rapid charger, that's $129. The supercharger is $149, and the dual supercharger is $249, and then the 6-port charger is $229. So we're going to let you work those numbers on what you think is most beneficial. I'll give you a quick rundown of my thoughts on this. If you're a DIYer at home and you're using, one tool at a time and you're burning through one battery at a time, you having one extra battery charged is probably plenty enough. So having a dual port charger or a single charger, and even one of the slower ones, I would say recommend at least have a rapid charger. You're going to probably be fine. Now the 6-port is awesome because you can just load them all up on there, leave it plugged in, and it's going to have them charged whenever you get up in the morning or start your next day. It's going to be fine. If you're at a point where you've got a team going and you're constantly running through batteries, then definitely stepping up to a supercharger and the dual port supercharger, and even into the Forge batteries, by all means. Time is money. Step up to a better charger. So I would say this Christmas season, or as people are asking, maybe you're not looking for more batteries or more tools. Maybe it's a charger you need to upgrade on. So think about it. So just remember, it may not always be that you need more batteries or more tools. Maybe you need a better charger to step up to. Maybe you need a multiple port charger that will charge several of your batteries at the same time, and you may not need it in rapid succession. It may be fine to leave that overnight. We're going to let you decide on that, But we've given you most of the options here, so hopefully you can make a choice. Let us know if we missed something. Also, keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, would you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already? And by all means, if you hated our video, well, give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day. Keep smiling.